6 months later, Thesia stood before the Galactic Concord Assembly. She was no longer the dying child who would be abandoned in a sealed room on Vithris 9. She was healthy, strong. Her crystalline body glowed with a steady blue light that had not dimmed since her recovery. The dark patches were gone, replaced by new growth that sparkled like diamonds in the assembly chamber's lights. She was also terrified. Thousands of alien eyes watched her from the tiered platforms that surrounded the central stage. Representatives from over 200 species had gathered to witness this moment. Some were curious. Some were hostile. Some wore expressions that Thesia could not read at all. But she was not alone. Commander Daniel Brooks stood behind her, along with Kira Lawson, Dr. Nathan Cole, and Lieutenant Amy Vance. The crew of the Horizon had come to support the girl they had saved. They were her family now, in every way that mattered. Ambassador Linda Marsh spoke first, her voice carrying through the vast chamber. 6 months ago, this assembly condemned humanity for violating quarantine protocols. You call this reckless, dangerous, a threat to galactic health security. You demanded that we return this child to die because your rules said she could not be saved. She paused, letting the silence stretch. We did not comply. We chose compassion over compliance. We chose hope over logic. And standing before you today is the result of that choice. Marsh stepped aside and gestured for Thesia to speak. The girl approached the central platform on trembling legs. She had rehearsed this moment dozens of times, but nothing could truly prepare her for facing the galaxy that had abandoned her. She took a breath and began. My name is Thesia. I am 9 years old now. 6 months ago, I was dying from the withering plague. Every species on Vithris 9 knew about me. The Villani Council knew. The Concord Health Bureau knew. Everyone knew. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. And everyone decided I was not worth saving. They said the plague was incurable. They said resources should not be wasted on impossible cases. They said I was an acceptable loss. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Councillor Vathus sat rigid in his seat, his ancient crystalline face unreadable. Thesia continued. Then the humans came. They did not ask permission. They did not calculate costs and benefits. They saw a sick child, and they refused to accept that nothing could be done. She turned to look at the Horizon crew. They gave their own blood to make medicine for me. They stayed with me through pain that I cannot describe. They risked their careers and their lives and their entire relationship with the Concord because they believed that one child's life was worth fighting for. Thesia faced the assembly. Again, I am standing here today because Deathworlders did something that no one else in the galaxy was willing to do. They tried. The chamber was absolutely silent. Thesia looked directly at Councillor Vathus. I do not hate my people. I do not hate the Concord. But I need everyone here to understand something. When I was dying alone in that room, when everyone had given up on me, the humans were the ones who came. They were the only ones who came. She paused, gathering her courage for what she needed to say next. Maybe that is because they are Deathworlders. Maybe surviving on a harsh planet taught them that nothing is truly impossible. Maybe their violent history taught them the value of life in ways that safer species cannot understand. I do not know. Her voice softened. What I do know is that they saved me. And if there are other children out there who have been written off as acceptable losses, I hope someone will save them too. Ambassador Marsh returned to the platform. She did not gloat or make demands. Instead, she made an offer. The treatment protocols developed by our medical team are now fully documented. We are offering them freely to any species that wants them, not as a condition of trade or diplomatic agreement. Freely, because saving lives should never be a bargaining chip. The assembly erupted in conversation. This was not what anyone had expected. The Deathworlders were supposed to be crude and selfish. They were supposed to demand something in return for their victory. Counselor Vathus rose from his seat. The chamber fell silent again as the ancient Vellani made his way to this central platform. He stood before Thesa for a long moment, studying her with eyes that had seen centuries pass. Then he spoke. "I owe you an apology, young one. I owe all of humanity an apology. When I voted to classify you as an acceptable loss, I told myself I was being responsible. I told myself I was protecting our species from a hopeless cause." His voice cracked slightly. "I was wrong. I was so focused on what I thought was logical that I forgot what was right. The humans showed us something that we had forgotten. Compassion is not a weakness. Hope is not irrational. And no child should ever be abandoned because saving them is difficult." He turned to face the full assembly. "I move that all charges against the human vessel Horizon be dropped immediately. I further move that the Concord establish a joint medical research initiative with humanity, built on the foundation of what they have achieved here today." The vote was not unanimous. Some species still clung to their fear and resentment, but it passed by an overwhelming majority. Afterward, representatives from dozens of worlds approached the human delegation. They wanted to discuss medical partnerships, research exchanges, collaborative projects. The Horizon's experimental treatment had opened doors that years of diplomacy had failed to unlock, but the crew did not care about politics or partnerships. They cared about the girl standing among them, smiling for the first time since she had been taken from that sealed room. Thesa looked up at Kira. "Is it really over?" Kira knelt down to meet her eyes. "The hard part is over. Now comes the good part." "What is the good part?" "Living, growing up, figuring out who you want to be." Thesa considered this. "Can I figure that out on the Horizon? With you?" Commander Brooks overheard the question. He walked over and placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "We talked about this, little one. You are welcome to stay with us as long as you want. You are part of our crew now." Thesa's glow brightened. "Really?" "Really." That evening, the Horizon departed from the Concord station and set course for its next mission. There would be other people who needed help. Other impossible situations that required someone stubborn enough to try. Thesa stood on the observation deck and watched the stars stream past. Kira stood beside her, as she always did now. "Kira," Thesa said quietly, "do you think other species will change? Do you think they will learn to be more like humans?" "I do not know. Maybe some will. Maybe others will not. Change is hard for everyone, but it is possible." Kira smiled. "Anything is possible. That is what we proved." Thesa nodded slowly. Her crystalline hand reached out and took Kira's human one. "I want to help," the girl said. "When I grow up, I want to help other abandoned children. I want to make sure no one ever has to feel the way I felt in that room. Then that is exactly what you will do." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the universe unfold before them. Behind them, the Galactic Concord was still debating and arguing and struggling with what the humans had shown them. It would take years for the full impact to be felt. Maybe decades. Maybe longer. But something had changed. A seed had been planted. The Deathworlders had reminded the galaxy that civilization was not measured by technology or territory or trade agreements. It was measured by how you treated the most vulnerable among you. And for one little girl who had been left to die, that lesson had made all the difference. The Horizon flew on through the endless night, carrying its crew of compassionate Deathworlders and the child they had refused to abandon. Ahead of them lay countless adventures, countless lives to touch, countless impossibilities to challenge. But that is another story for another time. This story ends with a simple truth. When every species turned away, Deathworlders stepped in, and the galaxy would never forget. The ultimatum arrived on the 7th day at Kepler Station. Commander Brooks. Read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. The Galactic Concord demanded that Thesa be returned to Volani custody within 48 hours. Failure to comply would result in severe consequences. Trade sanctions against human worlds. Diplomatic isolation. Possible military action if humans were deemed a threat to galactic health security. The message made it clear what would happen to Thesa if she was returned. Proper quarantine procedures. That was the polite way of saying they would let her die. Brooks called his senior officers to the conference room. They gathered around the table with grim faces, knowing that the weight of the galaxy was pressing down on them. "We have been contacted by Earth Central Command," Brooks said. "They are strongly encouraging us to comply with the Concord's demands." Kira felt her stomach drop. "They want us to hand her over? They want us to consider the bigger picture. Trade with the Concord represents 40% of Earth's interstellar commerce. Thousands of jobs depend on those agreements. Millions of people could be affected if sanctions go through." Lieutenant Vance shook her head. "So we should let a child die to protect profit margins?" Brooks held up his hand. "I am not saying I agree with them. I am saying that is the pressure we are facing. The decision is mine to make, and I need you all to understand what we are up against." Dr. Cole spoke quietly. "The second treatment is almost ready. Another 2 days, and we can proceed. If we can prove the cure works, if we can show the galaxy that humans succeeded where everyone else failed, maybe that changes the calculation. Or maybe it does not," Brooks replied. "Maybe they take her anyway and bury the research. Maybe they cannot stand the idea of Deathworlders showing them up." The room fell silent. Kira thought about Thesa sleeping in the medical bay. She thought about the girl's violet eyes and the way she smiled when someone told her a joke. She thought about the question Thesa had asked on that first day. "Are you here to end it?" "Sir," Kira said, "I did not join this crew to make calculations about acceptable losses. I joined because I believed in something. We all did. If we give up now, if we hand that girl over to people who have already decided she is not worth saving, then what was the point of any of this?" Brooks looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I took an oath when I became captain of this ship," he said. "I swore to protect life. All life, not just human life. Not just convenient life. All life. That oath does not come with exceptions for political pressure." He stood up from the table. "We are not handing anyone over. We are going to finish what we started. And if the Concord wants to come take her, they will have to go through me first." The crew got back to work. Dr. Cole accelerated the preparation of the T-cell enhancer. Engineers modified the medical bay to handle the stress of the upcoming procedure. Everyone on the station knew what was at stake, and everyone did their part. Thesa noticed the increased activity around her. She was smart enough to understand that something had changed. "They're coming for me," she said to Kira. "Are they not?" Kira hesitated. She had promised to always be honest with the girl. "Some people want to take you back. But we are not going to let them. Why are they so angry?" "I did not do anything wrong. No, sweetheart. You did not. They are angry because we are doing something they said was impossible. Some people hate being proven wrong more than they hate seeing others suffer." Thesa thought about that for a while. Then she asked another question, one that cut straight to the heart of everything. "Kira, why are humans so different? Everyone else in the galaxy follows rules. They calculate costs and benefits. They make logical decisions. But you do not. You do things that make no sense just because you feel they are right. Why?" Kira sat on the edge of the bed and considered her answer carefully. "A long time ago," she said, "humans did what everyone else does. We let the weak die. We abandoned the sick. We calculated who was worth saving and who was not. We were very good at being logical. What changed? We almost destroyed ourselves. Again and again, our logic led us to terrible places. We built weapons that could end all life on our planet. We let millions starve while others hoarded wealth. We watched our world burn because fixing it was too expensive. Kira paused, remembering history lessons that still kept her up at night. Eventually, we realized something. Logic without compassion is just cruelty with better math. We learned that the things that seem inefficient, like saving one child who might not survive, are actually the things that make us worth saving ourselves. These's crystalline face shifted into something like wonder. You changed yourselves. We are still changing. Every day. We still make mistakes. But we try. That is all anyone can do. The next morning, Dr. Cole announced that the treatment was ready. The T-cell enhancer was a small device, no bigger than a grain of rice, packed with synthetic biological material that would integrate with These's crystalline structure. If everything went right, it would give her the permanent ability to fight off the plague. If everything went wrong, her body would reject it and she would die faster than the disease could have killed her. There was no middle ground. Thesa looked at the tiny device in Cole's hand. She understood what was about to happen. Will it hurt? She asked. Yes, Cole admitted. Probably more than anything you have felt before. The girl nodded. She reached out and took Kira's hand, then looked up at the crowd of humans gathered around her bed. They had all come to be with her. Engineers and pilots and cooks and maintenance workers. The same people who had given their blood weeks ago. Thank you, Thesa said softly. For not leaving. For trying. Whatever happens. Thank you. Kira squeezed her hand. We are right here. We are not going anywhere. Cole administered the enhancer through a specialized injection. For a moment, nothing happened. Then These's body began to react. Her crystalline structure started vibrating at frequencies that made the wall shake. Her glow intensified until it was almost blinding, then flickered and nearly went out. The monitors screamed warnings as her cellular integrity fluctuated wildly. Cole worked with desperate precision, adjusting parameters and stabilizing fluctuations wherever he could. Vance monitored the integration process, calling out readings that swung from hopeful to catastrophic and back again. Thesa screamed. It was a sound that none of them would ever forget. The sound of a child in more pain than any child should ever experience. Kira held her hand through all of it. She whispered words of comfort that probably could not be heard over the chaos. She prayed to God she was not sure she believed in. Then, after 17 minutes that felt like 17 hours, the vibration stopped. Thesa lay still on the bed. Her glow was almost invisible. For one terrible moment, everyone thought they had lost her. Then something miraculous happened. New crystalline growth began appearing on her skin. The dark patches left by the plague started filling in with fresh blue crystal, brighter and stronger than before. The monitors showed her cellular structure rebuilding itself, integrating the human technology into something entirely new. Cole stared at the readings in disbelief. It is working, he whispered. Her body is not just accepting the enhancer. It is using it. She is regenerating. Thesa opened her eyes. They were still violet, but now they glowed with a light that had not been there before. Did we win? She asked weakly. Kira laughed through her tears. Yes, sweetheart. We won. The Concorde's deadline passed without incident. No ships came to take Thesa away. The galaxy was too busy watching the impossible happen to enforce its ultimatum. A Deathworlder ship had cured a disease that everyone said was incurable. They had saved a child that everyone had written off as dead, and nothing would ever be quite the same again. The Galactic Concorde Assembly was the largest gathering of species in known space. Representatives from over 200 civilizations met in a massive orbital station to debate policy, settle disputes, and maintain order across the galaxy. It was supposed to be a place of wisdom and cooperation. Today, it was a place of anger. Ambassador Linda Marsh stood alone at the human delegation's platform. She was a tall woman in her 50s with silver hair and a voice that never wavered. She had spent 30 years representing humanity among species who viewed her people as dangerous primitives. She was used to hostility, but she had never felt anything quite like this. The Torvian representative spoke first. His 4 eyes blazed with righteous fury as he addressed the assembly. The humans have violated Quarantine Protocol 7-3-9. They have removed a contaminated individual from isolation without authorization. They have endangered galactic health security. We demand immediate action. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Species that normally disagreed about everything seemed united in their condemnation. The Volani representative rose next. Councillor Vathus was an ancient member of his kind, his crystalline body clouded with age. He spoke with the weight of someone who had seen centuries pass. The infected child was a citizen of the Volani collective, he said. Her fate was ours to decide. The humans had no right to interfere. Ambassador Marsh listened without interruption. She had learned long ago that letting others speak first often revealed more than they intended. The Karathi delegate demanded sanctions. The Morellian delegate suggested trade restrictions. A dozen voices called for the child to be returned to Volani custody immediately. Finally, the assembly moderator turned to the human platform. Ambassador Marsh, you may respond. Linda Marsh took a breath and stood straight. She looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces, each one certain of human guilt. Then she spoke. 3 weeks ago, a little girl sat alone in a sealed room on Vethris 9. She was 8 years old. She was sick. She was dying. And every single species in this chamber knew about her. She paused to let that sink in. The Concord's Health Bureau received reports. Station authorities filed documentation. Trade vessels passed through and noted the quarantine. Everyone knew. And everyone decided that one sick child was not worth the trouble of trying to help. Counselor Vathus shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Ambassador Marsh continued. You call us Deathworlders. You say we are violent, primitive, dangerous. And maybe you are right. We come from a planet that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. We fought predators, diseases, natural disasters, and each other. We survived because we learned to never give up. We survived because we refused to accept that anything was impossible. She turned to face the Volani delegation directly. Your people looked at a child with a terminal disease and decided she was not worth saving. You calculated the cost of treatment, weighed it against the probability of success, and concluded that letting her die was the logical choice. Councillor Vathus opened his mouth to respond. But Marsh kept going. Humans do not think that way. We see a child in pain, and something inside us refuses to accept it. It is not logical. It is not efficient. But it is who we are. We do not abandon children. Not ours, not yours, not anyone's. The chamber was silent. We took Thesa because no one else would. We are treating her because no one else tried. And we will keep fighting for her life because that is what we do. If that makes us criminals in the eyes of this assembly, then so be it. We will be criminals who save children while the rest of you debate. Protocol. She sat down. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then the arguments began again, louder and angrier than before. But something had shifted. Ambassador Marsh could see it in the faces of some delegates. Doubt, shame, the uncomfortable realization that perhaps the Deathworlders had a point far away. Aboard Kepler Research Station, the crew of the Horizon had no time for politics. Dr. Cole stood over Thesa's bed, studying her latest test results. The initial treatment had stopped the plague's progression, but stopping was not the same as curing. The disease was still inside her, dormant but waiting. If they did not find a way to eliminate it completely, it would eventually resume its attack. She needs a second treatment, Cole told Commander Brooks. Something stronger. Something that will give her immune system the tools to fight this permanently. Can you do it? Cole hesitated. I have an idea, but it is even more experimental than the first treatment. Tell me. The doctor explained. The modified antibodies had proven that human immune responses could interact with Volani biology. But antibodies alone were not enough. What Thesa needed was a permanent boost to her own defenses. Cole proposed creating a synthetic immune enhancer based on human T-cells. The enhancer would be grafted directly into her crystalline structure, giving her body the ability to fight the plague on its own. The risks were significant. Her body might reject the synthetic material entirely. The graft could cause catastrophic failure of her cellular structure. They were essentially trying to rebuild part of her biology with human technology. But if it worked, she would be cured forever. Thesa listened to the explanation from her bed. She understood more than most adults gave her credit for. She had been thinking about death for weeks. Thinking about it does strange things to a person, even a young one. I want to try, she said. Kira sat beside her. Are you sure? You do not have to decide right now. The girl looked at her with those violet eyes. You told me that humans never give up, that you keep trying until you find a way. I want to be brave like that too. Cole began the preparations. It would take several more days to synthesize the T-cell enhancer. Several more days of waiting, hoping, praying to gods that might or might not be listening. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. News of Thesa's stabilization leaked to the galactic press. At first, the coverage was hostile. Deathworlders endangering the galaxy with reckless medical experiments. Primitive humans playing with forces they did not understand. The usual fear-mongering that accompanied any story about humanity. But then the narrative began to shift. Journalists started asking uncomfortable questions. Why had no other species attempted treatment? Why had the Volani given up on their own child? Why were humans, the supposed barbarians of the galaxy, the only ones willing to try? On a dozen worlds, ordinary citizens began talking about the little crystalline girl and the Deathworlders who refused to let her die. Some condemned the humans, but others, quietly at first and then more loudly, began to wonder if maybe the galaxy had its priorities wrong. Counselor Vathos watched the changing coverage from his chambers on the Concord station. His crystalline face showed no expression, but inside he felt something he had not experienced in centuries. He had been so certain that abandoning Thesa was the right choice, the logical choice, the responsible choice. Now he was not sure anymore. Aboard Kepler Station, Kira sat with Thesa and told her stories about Earth. She talked about oceans and mountains and forests filled with life. She talked about children playing in parks and families, eating dinner together and all the ordinary beautiful things that humans took for granted. Your world sounds nice. Thesa said, It is not perfect. Kira admitted. We have done terrible things throughout our history. We have hurt each other in ways I cannot even describe. But we have also learned to be better. We keep trying to be better. Thesa reached out and touched her hand. I am glad your people found me. Kira smiled. So am I, sweetheart. So am I. Outside the station, the galaxy watched and waited. The Deathworlders had defied every rule and expectation. Now everyone wanted to see what would happen next. And Thesa, the abandoned child, had become something more than a patient. She had become a symbol. Asterisk. 3 days into their journey, Dr. Nathan Cole called a meeting in the medical bay. The news was not good. Thesa lay sleeping in a specialized bed that monitored aspect of her crystalline biology. The dark patches on her skin had spread since they left Vithras 9. Her glow was weaker now. flickering like a candle in the wind. Cole pulled up holographic displays showing her cellular structure. The images were beautiful in a terrible way. Her body was made of living crystal, intricate lattice of mineral and light, woven together into something that should have been impossible. But the plague was destroying that beauty. It ate through her cells like acid, leaving dead gray patches where there should have been shimmering blue. The withering plague attacks her fundamental structure, Cole explained. It breaks down the bonds between her crystal cells and prevents regeneration. Her own immune system cannot fight it because Vellani did not evolve on a world that required strong immune responses. They come from a paradise planet. No predators, no diseases, no challenges. Commander Brooks leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. What about our medicine? Can we adapt anything we have? Cole shook his head. Nothing in our standard medical database applies. The Lani biology is too different. Antibiotics do not work on crystal. Antivirals are useless. We cannot even give her painkillers because we do not know how her nervous system processes them. Kira looked at the sleeping girl and felt helpless. So what can we do? That is when Lieutenant Amy Vance spoke up. She was the ship's xenobiology specialist, a young woman with bright red hair and a mind that worked in ways most people could not follow. She had been quiet throughout the meeting, staring at the holographic displays with intense focus. We cannot treat her with conventional medicine, Vance said. But maybe we do not have to. Everyone turned to look at her. Vance stepped forward and pulled up a new display. This one showed human cells. Humans are classified as Deathworlders because we evolved on one of the most hostile planets in the known galaxy. Our immune systems are considered almost absurdly aggressive by galactic standards. We fight off diseases that would kill most species. We survive injuries that should be fatal. Our bodies are constantly at war with microscopic threats, and we win most of those wars. Cole's eyes widened. He was starting to understand where she was going. Vance continued. Vellani have no natural immunity, but humans have more than we need. What if we could share some of that with her? Transfer human antibodies to a Vellani patient, Cole said slowly. Cross-species immunotherapy. It has never been done, because no one has ever tried, Vance replied. Everyone in the galaxy looks at different species and sees barriers. Humans look at barriers and see problems to solve. Commander Brooks pushed off from the wall. What would this involve? Vance explained the theory. They would extract antibodies from human blood and modify them to interact with Vellani biology. The modified antibodies would be introduced into Thesis' system, where they might trigger an immune response that her own body could not produce. The key word was might. There are significant risks, Cole admitted. Her crystalline structure might reject the foreign proteins entirely. The treatment could accelerate the plague instead of stopping it. We simply do not know. What happens if we do nothing? Brooks asked. Cole's silence was answer enough. Kira made her decision. I will donate my blood for the antibodies. Vance nodded. We will need multiple donors to have enough material to work with. The modification process will take time. Then we start now. Brooks said. Words spread through the ship quickly. Within an hour, half the crew had volunteered to donate blood. Engineers, pilots, cooks, maintenance workers. They lined up outside the medical bay and rolled up their sleeves without being asked. They did not do it for recognition or reward. They did it because a little girl needed help, and helping was what humans did. Thesa woke up during the preparations. She watched the crew members come and go with wide violet eyes. What are they doing? She asked Kira. They are giving some of their blood, so we can make medicine for you. The girl's crystalline face shifted in confusion. They are giving parts of themselves? For me? Yes, but why? I am not their family. I am not even their species. Kira sat on the edge of the bed and took Thesa's cool hand in her own. Because you are a child who needs help. That is all that matters to us." Thesa was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that made Kira's heart ache. The Volani Council said I was an acceptable loss. They said resources should not be wasted on one child when the plague might spread. My own people decided I was not worth saving. Kira squeezed her hand. Your people made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But you are not with them anymore. You are with us. And we do not give up on people. What if your medicine does not work? Then we will try something else. And something else after that. We will keep trying until we find a way. The girl's glow brightened slightly. You really believe that? It was not a question. But Kira answered anyway. I really do. The modification process took 4 days. Dr. Cole and Lieutenant Vance worked in shifts, sleeping only when their bodies refused to stay awake any longer. They built something that had never existed before. Human antibodies wrapped in synthetic proteins designed to bond with crystalline cells. When the treatment was finally ready, Cole called everyone to the medical bay. He held up a small vial of pale blue liquid. This was their hope. Their impossible, desperate hope. Thesa looked at the vial and then at the faces around her. She was 8 years old. She had been abandoned by her own species. She had been told she was going to die. And now a room full of Deathworlders was asking her to trust them. I am not afraid, she said softly. Cole prepared the injection. His hands were steady, as always. I need you to understand that this might hurt. Your body has never experienced anything like this. We do not know how you will react. Thesa nodded. I understand. Kira held the girl's hand as the needle went in. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Thesa's body went rigid. Her crystalline structure began vibrating at frequencies that made the air hum. The monitors screamed warnings as her vital signs fluctuated wildly. Cole worked frantically to stabilize her. Vance adjusted the treatment parameters in real time. The rest of the crew could only watch and pray to whatever gods they believed in. After 37 minutes, the seizures stopped. Thesa lay still on the bed, her glow reduced to almost nothing. For one terrible moment, everyone thought they had killed her. Then the monitors beeped, once, twice. A steady rhythm. She is stable, Cole said. He stared at the readings in disbelief. The plague progression has stopped. It is not cured, but it is not spreading anymore. Thesa opened her eyes. They were still violet, still beautiful. Did it work? She asked. Kira smiled through her tears. It is working, sweetheart. It is working. That night, as the ship continued toward Kepler Research Station, something changed aboard the horizon. The crew had started this journey as medical workers doing their jobs. Now they were something else. They were family, and they had just proven that Deathworlders could do more than survive. They could save others, too. The distress signal came through at 3 in the morning, ship time. Kira Lawson was already awake, sitting in the communications bay with a cold cup of coffee in her hands. She had not been sleeping well lately. Something about the deep black of space made her restless, made her think too much about all the people she could not save. The signal was strange. It was not a standard emergency broadcast. It was just a single biological signature flagged with 2 words that made her stomach turn. Contaminated. Abandoned. She brought it to Commander Daniel Brooks within minutes. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and tired eyes that had seen too many hard decisions. He looked at the data and said nothing for a long moment. The signal came from Orbital Station Vithras 9. It was a neutral trading hub where dozens of species conducted business. Under the watchful eye of the Galactic Concord, humans were tolerated there, though never truly welcomed. The galaxy still did not know what to make of the Deathworlders from the violent little planet called Earth. Commander Brooks gave the order to change course. The USS Horizon was a medical relief vessel, not a warship. Its purpose was to help. That was enough reason for him. When they arrived at Vithras 9, Ensign Paula Grant established contact with station authorities. The response was immediate and hostile. A Torvian administrator appeared on screen, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly with what Kira recognized as fear. "You are not welcome here," the administrator said. "The contaminated sector has been sealed. There is nothing to rescue." Kira leaned forward. "Our sensors show a living being in that sector. A child." The administrator's eyes blinked faster. "The Villani female is infected with the withering plague. She cannot be saved. Concord health protocols are clear. Quarantine and termination are the recommended actions." Termination. Kira felt the word like a punch to her chest. They were talking about killing a child because it was easier than trying to save her. Commander Brooks kept his voice calm. "What efforts have been made to treat her?" "None." The administrator seemed confused by the question. "Treatment is not possible. The withering plague has no cure. Resources cannot be wasted on impossible cases. This is standard procedure. Standard procedure." Kira wanted to scream at him. Instead, she watched Commander Brooks nod slowly, his jaw tight. "We will conduct our own assessment," the commander said. "Prepare to receive our shuttle." The administrator made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You Deathworlders truly are insane. Enter the contaminated sector if you wish. But the child will not leave this station. The Concord has already ruled on this matter." The screen went dark. Kira looked at her commander. "Sir, they are going to let a little girl die because paperwork says they should." Brooks stood up from his chair. "Then we will have to disagree with the paperwork. Get your gear, Lawson. You are coming with me." The shuttle ride to the station was quiet. Kira checked her medical kit 3 times. She knew she was nervous. She also knew that nervousness would not stop her from doing what needed to be done. The contaminated sector was a ghost town. Lights flickered in empty corridors. Shops stood abandoned with merchandise still on their shelves. Every species on the station had fled from this place, terrified of a disease that could not even infect most of them. They found the child in a small residential unit on the 3rd level. She was sitting in the corner of her room, knees pulled up to her chest. Her body was crystalline, like all Villani, with a faint blue glow that pulsed with her heartbeat. But the glow was dim now. Dark patches spread across her arms and face, where the plague was eating away at her. Her name was Thesa. She was 8 years old by human standards. When she saw the humans enter her room, she did not run. She did not cry. She just looked at them with large violet eyes and said, "Are you here to end it?" Kira felt her heart break. She knelt down in front of the child and spoke softly. "No, sweetheart. We are here to help you." Thesa tilted her head. "No one helps. Everyone leaves. That is what happens when you are sick like me." Commander Brooks crouched beside Kira. "Not everyone, little one. Humans do not leave." The girl studied them for a long moment. Her crystalline features caught the dim light and scattered it like a prism. Then she asked a question that Kira would never forget. Why? Because, Kira said, that is who we are. Getting Thesa back to the horizon was not simple. Station security tried to stop them twice. The Torvian administrator sent threatening messages every few minutes. But Commander Brooks had faced worse than angry bureaucrats. And he was not about to let a dying child slip through his fingers, because someone was worried about regulations. They reached the shuttle with Thesa wrapped in a thermal blanket. She was so light. Her crystalline body weighed almost nothing. Kira held her close and whispered promises she was not sure she could keep. On the horizon, Dr. Nathan Cole was waiting in the medical bay. He was a short man with steady hands and a mind that never stopped working. He took one look at Thesa and his face went pale. "The withering plague," he said. "I have read about it. There is no treatment. Then we will invent one. Commander Brooks replied. Cole stared at him for a moment. Then he nodded and got to work. Kira stayed with Thesa while the doctors ran their tests. The girl was quiet, watching everything with those violet eyes. She did not seem afraid anymore. Just curious. Your ship is warm, Thesa said finally. My home was always cold. Kira smiled at her. You can stay warm here as long as you like. The girl reached out and touched Kira's hand. Her crystalline fingers were cool but gentle. You really will not leave? Never, Kira promised. That night, after Thesa had fallen asleep in the medical bay, Kira stood on the observation deck and watched the stars. She knew what they had done. They had defied the Galactic Concord. They had taken a contaminated child from quarantine. They had made enemies of species who already distrusted humans, and she did not care. Commander Brooks found her there. He stood beside her in silence for a while before speaking. We have no idea how to cure her. He said. I know. The Concord will come after us. I know that too. He turned to look at her. Are you afraid? Kira thought about Thesa. She thought about those violet eyes and that terrible question. Are you here to end it? No, she said. I am angry. I am angry that a galaxy full of advanced civilizations looked at a sick child and decided she was not worth saving. I am angry that we are the only ones who stepped up. Brooks nodded slowly. Good. Hold on to that anger. We are going to need it. The horizon turned away from Vithras 9 and set course for human space. Behind them, the station authorities filed their reports and declared the Villani child already dead. But Thesa was not dead. She was sleeping peacefully in a warm bed, surrounded by Deathworlders who had decided that her life was worth fighting for. And that made all the difference.